AI is a massive wave, right? And you're a surfer. The technology itself is only on 1/3 of the battle. And yet you have these very technically savvy engineers running companies and doing startups that really only understand 1/3 of the problems. You want to be able to present a comprehensive plan that somebody can look at and say, yeah, you accounted for everything. I believe in you. Here's the funds you need. We brought 150 companies in. The acceleration we showed was 94%. The cost savings we showed was 96%. If you're behind the wave, you just missed the wave. You got to be the surfer who sees the wave coming, gets on the top, jumps up on your board, riding right on the crest. God help us, we got to see where it's taking us. But it's going to get you there fast.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining another episode of DIB Innovators. Today I'm talking with David Mroczka, founder and CEO of AI Strategy Corporation, who has a flagship platform called 9High. Very cool, happy to have you. We happened to meet in Rome at a Army event, ALFS event, which was pretty cool. So great opportunity to get David on the show and share a little bit about what he's doing.
Dave, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And it was honestly pretty special hanging out with you over in Rome, Italy. We got to meet a lot of really interesting people. It was really the first time that industry was even invited to the event. So, having somebody like you with some of your background was very helpful. There to kind of meet up and engage with a lot of the folks that were at this event this past year.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of the founder story, background.
Sure, definitely. So, well, first of all, I'm Dave Mroczka. I'm President and CEO of AI Strategy, and the name of the platform is called 9High. 9High is kind of unique. It's actually something that I started building, believe it or not, going all the way back to 1999. I'm a mechanical engineer, a manufacturing engineer, as well as an MBA and MS, and I've always developed businesses and technology in parallel. And that's really what 9High does. It was built out of necessity, first of all, to guide new technologies past the valley of death and get more things out to the warfighter. And, part of my background, the last big gig before I started this software company was I ran the largest privately owned test lab in the country. So it's on 26 acres, 300,000 square feet of facility. They can dynamically and environmentally and electrically replicate almost any environment, undersea, on land, in air, or outer space. And so we were a test lab. We were the primary test lab for the Defense Department. So we had all the bigs come to us. We had Lockheed, Boeing, Raytheon, really everybody that needed new systems approved, qualified, would come to us. We ran over 15,000 programs in the 7 years that I was there. And we saw the valley of death firsthand. We saw even the bigs fail, guys. You got a lot of small startups and technology companies that struggle. And you just have a hard time typically going back and getting more funding. But the big guys do too. They have issues. And we really built this platform to learn from that and build in some AI assistance to guide people past the valley of death.
All right. So explain how a program in your previous role would come through. So it's about, how did you get a hold of that program? How were you really running or assisting it before this when you were in your, lab site?
So it didn't really exist. I mean, what I started doing, again, going all the way back to 1999, is, I found myself fresh out of, business school with an MBA, and I landed a job with a $3 billion Japanese materials company. And my responsibility is to run a business unit for North and South America. And the Japanese had never been over in these markets before. So they literally bring me over to Japan and show me 750 material technologies that are on the shelf at about TRL 7. And they want me to now figure out which of these we're going to select and how we're going to commercialize them and who the customers are and how much investment they need, what's the ROI going to be. And just out of necessity, I started building spreadsheets as fast as possible and trying to understand, what could be successful, what drives success, how you bring products to market, and what can happen, what can fail along the way. So it really was just in spreadsheets from 99 till about 2018 or so. So for a long time, I just captured data. And then I met some people in the Secretary of Defense's office. They got to see what this process I've been using, and they said, "Hey, let's turn this into a software platform so that everybody can use it." And I'm very excited to accomplish that now.
Okay, so how does the platform actually work?
Sure. So it's out on the commercial cloud. People can literally go to our website. It's 9high, NINE-HI.com. And you can go on and sign up for a subscription. We'll give you We'll give you some time to go and test it out before we charge you for it or anything. It's only $599 per user per year. And you go on, you log in, you create an account, we'll help you onboard. And what you do is you and your team will start to profile your own technology. Okay. What we do is we take people through a product market fit analysis first to see if your technology is even viable for, say, some of the applications that we have from the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, or for other commercial applications. And you're doing the work yourself. It's just that what you're doing is you're getting our AI assistants with you. 9High is not the kind of platform where you just hit a button and it's going to give you all of a sudden magically, all the best things to do, but it works with you and it maps your journey. So we do an initial snapshot of where your technology and where your team is right now, what the maturity is. For people who are familiar with TRL's technology readiness level of your technology, but also the readiness level of your team and for specific market applications. So you go through and you build your own project that you do privately because you're putting in your sensitive IP and you'll share it with some people and you don't want to share it with other people. So you do it all privately on the platform. You end up with this scored assessment. It's quantitative evidence-based scored assessment with our AI assistants. And then you can go out to investors and you can go to the government. You can go to industry partners, to customers, and they can have much more confidence in what exactly you've built, what it can be used for, and how mature it is. So you know how much money you need to go get from the government or from investors in order to continue on that journey.
So you're using AI. I think key differentiator. This is not just an LLM of,
There's multiple LLMs, and there's a lot of data. So in that laboratory, we ran over 15,000 programs in the 7 years that I was there, right? We captured a lot of lessons learned. Nothing sensitive, nothing proprietary, but we want people to not make the same mistakes over and over again. So we built that into our database that the LLMs school off of, and that they make these recommendations to the users based on real world actual stuff, not just something that a GPT algorithm somewhere is making up. It's based on real world events that we've actually encountered before.
Yeah, I think that's an important differentiator. Give me an example of something that you've seen over and over that companies fail where this product, 9High, will help uncover that so that doesn't happen.
So when you're talking about there's different types of failure modes depending on what the kind of technology is, certainly, and what the kind of company is that's doing it. Very often you'll have really smart people, very technically savvy, right? That are coming up with a new technology to solve a real problem that they're even aware of, right? But what the problem you have is that they're technology heavy. And the thing that 9High points out to people is that the technology itself and the risks associated with that technology are only about 1/3 of the total problem set of actually having a company successfully bring that technology to the market. Because again, we model the product technology, the team of stakeholders, and the market application. So the technology itself is really only 1/3 of the battle. And yet you have these very technically savvy engineers running companies and doing startups that really only understand 1/3 of the problem set of the things that can bite them and cause them to fail. You need people in operations or in manufacturing or in finance or in sales. You need people like you, Dave. You understand military applications. You spent a lifetime in the military and you understand the jargon, the lingo, how it all works on the other side, on the government side. But a lot of people who are developing technologies don't know how the government operates or what their needs are, quite honestly. They make assumptions because they see things in the news. They say, "Hey, I can fix that problem," But there's a whole pathway that you have to understand of how to get there. So that's one of the things you see very common in smaller companies, tech startups. They understand their tech really well. That's 1/3 of the problem set.
Right. So this will help lay out, like, you need a BD guy or you need someone industry expert.
And the tech people have to respect that. A lot of them think that a lot of them think they're very smart, in which they are, right? And they'll just figure out the rest when they get there. It's not a good idea. You want to have a plan. You want to have a plan that you're presenting to VCs. You want to have a plan that you're presenting to corporate venture capital. If you're going to partner up with a large prime or you're going to go to a technical conference, you want to be able to present a comprehensive plan that somebody can look at and say, yeah, you accounted for everything. I believe in you. Here's the funds you need.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And so it's really just understanding, kind of life cycle procurement or acquisition of anything. I imagine there's just think it through this, potentially other use cases.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's an awful lot of use case. Yeah. So, and just looking at commercial versus military too, right? So, I've used Nine High to run entire businesses before, because in Nine High again, we build a model and a framework, and you can do whatever you want once you have a framework. It's just like, using GPS to drive your car. Once you have GPS in place, you can now have smart bombs in place. You can now have all sorts of things that can give you navigation and tell you how to get from one spot to another. So Nine High is really that navigation system for technology. And a big part of that, we're launching now to a large $4 billion defense contractor. And they want it for multiple reasons. They want it for their own technologies and how to guide them forward, but just also to run some certain business and manufacturing operations. Because in there, you're bringing technologies into their business. They need to be able to deploy them the right way. They have to be the right ones to run their operations. And they need to have all the financial measures, the ROI, the payback. And guess what? MIT posted, there's actually been multiple studies over the last 6 months, but MIT posted one at the end of last year that showed there's 85 to 90% of everybody trying to deploy AI into a corporate setting. 85 to 90% are failing. They're not reaching their ROIs along the way. And look, this is not unusual. This is not a surprise to me at all, because the value of death we're talking about with the government, of bringing new technologies to government, they fail 80 to 90% of the time too. So why would we be surprised about AI not getting the kind of traction ROI that they're looking for? And even on the VC side, when folks are going after private commercial applications, if you get VCs to open up to you, they'll tell you that on average, they invest into 40 opportunities to get one that pans out. That's a 97.5% failure rate. So these are all risky scenarios, and that's why we have a great system now that improves eightfold the output of what people had before they started using Nine High. So we're getting a lot more success for people, getting a lot of people interested. Even the folks that we met over in Italy, there's some Army folks there that are very interested in this. And we've been talking to them pretty much weekly, figuring out the plan for deployment of Nine High to the Army. So really looking forward to this.
Yeah. How does it, so who are your customers? Like, how are you trying to integrate? I mean, obviously you're trying to help.
It's almost a difficulty, right? When you have something that's almost ubiquitous, could be used anytime you have risk in business, which when you don't, you have risk in business, right? So if we can be used everywhere, you can't boil the ocean when you're launching a business and bringing a product to market for sure. So we're starting with government first because they're the ones that funded us, but in the meantime, with all the shutdowns and everything, they've been slow. So we've been reaching out to commercial, like I said, we did land something with the city of Tampa. We landed something with a defense contractor. I can't identify who it is right now, but we're under NDA, of course, along the way. But we have really a lot of applications, to the point where what we're actually looking at changing our model a little bit. Not really changing, it's really always been part of my product roadmap, but there's going to be another company that we're setting up. So Nine High right now is this engine that can help you figure out risks and guide you and bring you to more success in any kind of business scenario, any kind of technology development scenario. But I always call that the engine. The next step for us is a marketplace and a fund. So the marketplace is going to be fun because we got 150 companies on the platform already that are all profiled. And anybody that's listening to this, love to bring you in. You profile your technology and you can be there. Now, the marketplace has been kind of matchmaking and saying, hey, I think you guys should get together and talk about this technology, bring it to your application. So, one person as a marketplace isn't going to cut it. So I've been talking to some very large investors about pulling this together, making a real marketplace out of it, and then also setting up a fund because they're investors and that's what they do. So the next step is to really set this up so that we do an assessment. We really like it. As soon as we get the signal from the government, which is, yeah, they invest into this technology, boom, that fund is right there to be the lead investor, to go in, because a lot of VCs and private equity folks don't want to be the lead. They don't want to take the risk. They don't want to do all the background. But if we're there, we look at it like, hey, we're first opportunity in. We get to see it. Let's capture that, invest into it, and then give the signal to other private capital to come in and invest as well.
Yeah, I guess that's an advantage. You've seen a couple programs go through the gauntlet.
We certainly have, certainly. Well, there's the physical gauntlet, like the Army program is doing right now with drones and all that, and we have our own gauntlet that we put people through. Ours is pretty reasonable. It's quick. It's just a couple of days to do a profile in Nine High, And we give people real facts, you align to these applications or you don't align, and then you have choices as a company. If you don't align, if your technology doesn't align well to an application, we tell you why, so you can either go and refine and make your product better or pivot and go to a different application, you know?
Yeah. Have you been able to quantify the time savings, the acceleration, cost reduction of your platform?
Yeah. And then the numbers are kind of crazy. We did a 6-month program with the U.S. Army. It wrapped up in May of 2025, and we ran it for 6 months. We brought 150 companies in. Compared to the normal military, which is honestly not a high hurdle to clear, but the acceleration we showed was 94%. The cost savings we showed was 96%. Okay. Now, that's not for the entire development program. It's for the portion that we had done, right? Which is scout for, assess them, bring them forward so they can go under contract. But, look at like the Army X-Tech program. It took, the programs they were running last year took them 10 to 12 months to figure out who they should invest into. The longest we've ever taken is 2 weeks. We can do it in 3 or 4 days, so we're talking orders of magnitude difference in how we can identify, assess, and put a technology forward that has a strong viability of working, doing what you want it to do, and we're providing guidance all the way through to get it over the finish line into production to the warfighter. So those are, and then when you calculate the acceleration and the cost savings, that's where we get our 8 times improvement. So if people are being successful 10% of the time, we're kind of getting them up to like 80% of the time.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. Fantastic. So you have contracts with the Army now, or?
Well, we had one for a demonstration, and that's what we wrapped up last year. And then the government was shut down. This is for anybody that's new to government business. Be careful, wear your boots and strap in real tight and have funding, because the government has been shut down multiple times. We're constantly under continuing resolution. There's a lot of things about the environment that are not great. So we showed phenomenal success, and we have big fans throughout the Defense Department or Department of War. And even with that, it took us from May of last year to now May of this year to where we're finally getting to a point where we think we're going to be seeing some funding. And that was after showing remarkable results. So it's the starts and stops of the federal government. It is what it is.
I would think with our new lean forward acquisition, change kind of mentality, we would be able to find places to help accelerate.
And the thing is, everybody's restructuring, right? The Air Force is restructured. The Army's restructured. Actually, the Army, I think, came through a lot of their restructuring faster than other groups. The Navy is struggling, honestly. We've presented to high-level people in the Navy, and yet people at the front gate are still doing things sometimes the older way.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you most excited about? Where is this going?
Well, a couple things. We've got some again, getting the private capital involved is so important, right? And the things that we're talking about with the Army and now the Air Force, are some potentially big programs, to be able to set up new OTAs, for example, right? I'm talking to people who have existing OTAs. Those are the people who are set up in a structure where, for people who are not familiar with an OTA is an other transaction authority or agreement. Okay. And it's a non-FARS federal acquisition regulation. It's a non-FARS methodology for contracting that's simpler. And so it's easier for people who are not familiar with government contracting come in, get under contract. And so we're talking to people there to be able to restructure how they do their OTAs so that we can come in. Well, again, we just want to be a software platform. We don't want to take over their OTAs. We don't care about that. But what we want to make sure is we're driving things through as many places as possible. So we're partnering with a couple that are going to be probably adopting our methodology and ability to accelerate and use money more effectively from the government. Some of those OTAs don't want to use us because they're making an awful lot of money by having a lot of money pass through. Some of them are not aligned to progress, put it that way. They're not incentivized to really have progress. Other ones are. Other ones are very willing to do it, and they're hungry and they want to do it. So we have that. And like I said, where I'm working with these other investors, and if there's anybody interested in this, we'd be very happy because we need to branch this out into the investment community as much as possible. Jamie Dimon, right? Jamie Dimon is putting out, they've talked about with Chase Morgan Stanley, that they're putting out $1.5 trillion of funding, that's going to be going to investment to dual use technologies for the Defense Department, for expanding, growth also, not just in new technologies, but ones that are established, but expanding manufacturing capabilities here domestically in the US. That's a big one. We can use 9 High for that absolutely all day long. So, and we got a fellow we work with down in Texas. His name is David Hamilton. He's with the University of North Texas right now. Used to run America's Future Series. I'm actually on his advisory board. They got Jamie Dimon coming to their event in the fall, and that's a big deal, to be able to tie in with that kind of funding and really jumpstart a lot of what this country needs. There could be bad things happening in the future. Hopefully we can head them off and show prominence in our defense capabilities so that nobody wants to start another war. But as well as I do, Dave, that's certainly a possibility at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's very interesting, where this goes, but it would behoove me for acquisition authorities in the military, be it these, whether it's from a cyber or something, to use a product like this. It helps sort, what's real, what's not, who's done the due diligence, who doesn't. Right now, especially cybers, I just think that funding's almost misrepresented because they're just taking shots, Advice, a little more focus, you could really start to move, make material needle movers for different companies and capability sets for the warfighter.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's it's a big part of it is, where are the funds being used, and are they being used for the best purposes along the way? So I mean, a big just duplication of activities, right? Look at how siloed the Department of War is, right? Army, Navy, Air Force. Are they really synced to know who's investing into what areas, along the way? And very often you see people investing in technologies that there's already commercial solutions available, right? Or they're duplicating their efforts on something that they could just adopt something off the shelf and modify it instead of starting from scratch all over again. That happens a lot, and that's something that our system will be able to address. Because if we've got a marketplace of solutions, you're going to see the maturity of where they've been used. And if they have been used or they've been invested into, you're going to see the history of that when in the 9 High platform.
To get hacked by China and they're in there messing around too.
We have stuff right now in the commercial cloud, The whole idea is when we get to the government cloud, yeah, that stuff will not pass back to the commercial side. That's up to their security to take care of that piece of this. Yeah. So how about with your business, with your security aspects of that? I mean, I'm sure that Radical, right, could help an awful lot with protecting people's sensitive information that they have as they come into a platform like 9 High.
Yeah, I mean, that's the intent is, you're able to monitor their systems for people getting into like your system, or your team system. You see an identity, an endpoint breached, it goes unnoticed. Then they start moving laterally to get authenticate, authority to then log into like the platform, to log into GovCloud emails, and then they're often running on that way. So it's really monitoring indicators of compromise, going out and hunting, putting away, make it harder for them to get in, vulnerabilities, different things, then indicators of those compromises, or actual identification of it, quickly isolating that problem, making sure it didn't spread, and then identifying what may have happened, how to pull back, the mouse that's been running around in the kitchen for 2 days, where all did it go?
And that can be a barrier to a lot of these companies that are trying to start to come in, right? They've got to pass certain security requirements along the way. So again, that needs some level of investment to be able to do that, because you're not going to get that contract unless you can sign the contract that says that you have all these security features in place. It's part of the deal.
Yeah, and I think, for us, like, it'd be interesting, just like more security in general, not to say us specifically, but sequencing those requirements to a company. And when they are making decisions on type of email or file storage, or they can start aligning, knowing what a longer cost profile will look like for them if they choose X solutions, that's fine. But if you scale to 10 to 100, this is what that looks like. If I said having to change it or going through a, CMMC compliance solution requirement to get certified, what does that look like? What do you need to do it? So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, so you have the CMMC requirements for the company itself, right? And then, if you're a software developer, you also have approval to operate requirements where you have these IL levels, right, of different levels of security that if the government's gonna be using your software, you have to pass that as well. So it's a twin towers there as far as the requirements that you have, for software companies.
Yeah, it's tough. So is AI is the South killer. Is it going to kill your company?
So far, it's only helping us, because we're using it along the way. So and we were just having this discussion with these other potential partners that we have building this marketplace and this fund. And once we launch it, I'll come back on. We'll talk about it more. I'd love to start publicizing it, but right now I can't say too much about it. But the way I look at it is AI is a massive wave, right? And you're a surfer, right? So there's two things that are going to happen. One is or three things that there's an optimum in the middle. If you're in front of the wave, it's going to come crashing down on you and you're going to be in a world of hurt because it's going to kind of destroy your business, your opportunities. It could be your career. 90% of all your knowledge base goes away because AI will do it for you. So you got to be really good and really creative with the things that you're putting together. So that's if you're in front of the wave of AI coming. If you're behind the wave and say that you're on your surfboard and you have this big wave coming, but you don't ride it and it just kind of comes up under you and keeps on going, you just missed the wave. And there's not going to be another one. Not like that. That's going to be able to bring you in and give you that ride that you're looking for. You got to be the surfer who sees the wave coming, gets on the top, jumps up on your board, riding right on the crest, and God help us, we got to see where it's taking us. But it's going to get you there fast. The things are like AI. AI is not a panacea for anything. Because if you just start taking AI and applying it to the same junky processes or business that you've had before, you're not going to survive. You need to reinvent your business as you're bringing AI into it along the way. So we do help a lot with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have. I think companies will succeed have unique access or access to unique data that is not widely. That is something you have.
Data is very important, sure, yeah, but also as much as that, it's how you use the data that's very important, and you can't rely on AI for everything. Seriously, our whole platform is based on human first. So we want to push AI information to people and let them make decisions. If we're not hit a button and AI does everything for you, we're augmenting him. That's what the HI of 9 high stands for, human intelligence. We're trying to not replace jobs, quite honestly. We're trying to make people better, just faster and a hell of a lot more efficient. Because if you look at 90%, 80% failure rate, we got a lot of room for improvement. So there's a lot of room for people to stay involved here.
Yeah, you're helping people keep jobs because they're not getting blown out of the water at first contact with the government. All right, well, we got to start wrapping this up. Let's do a quick lightning round. Just give me a little couple things. First nuggets. Biggest myth or misconception about selling to the DoD?
That it's easy, honestly. So, the whole thing about, build a better mousetrap and the world would be the path to your door. No way in hell. It's harder with the DoD than it is with anybody else. And you got to have people. It's about people and relationships, just like you and I, right? We're having this call today because of relationships. So DoD is not this. Yes, it's a big machine, but guess what? There's individual people in there with individual personalities and needs and demands and risks and problems. You got to hook up with a person and multiple people to sell.
Hardest lesson you've learned in building a defense company?
I probably learned it a long time ago. Probably more when I was in the laboratory is where I learned the things about defense. Is about how much failure actually happens and how it can happen from so many different areas. So and it's happened to us too along the way. Like government shutdowns have hurt us financially. You know what I mean? So you got to be able to weather that.
All right, what's the number one piece of advice you'd give someone starting a defense tech company right now? Aside views Matt and high.
Sure, besides line, yeah. You can't just be a technology specialist, right? You've got to know, you got to hook up with people like you who have the military background, have the understanding, know what, and currently. So even like your network, Dave, you know people that are still in and still doing work, right? So they know what the problem sets are. You have to link that product market fit. It can't be just, oh, I saw this problem. I know this is something they need. I got the best solution out there. It's got to be matched up.
Name is sacred cow on defense tech that you think will be proven false.
That you're too big to fail. I think some of the big primes are in for it. If they Those that can adopt and adapt, and I'm working with a couple of them, and some of them can do it. Some of them clearly cannot, and too big to fail. I bet you that you're going to see some that just start to decline. They're going to be overtaken by the others. The wave's going to crash on them because they're not bringing AI in. A lot of them are concerned because they want to bring AI within their security domain and all this. You have to engage with it because your competition is.
What do you think the biggest opportunity in defense is right now?
Well, a lot of it is non-technical as far as AI goes. There's all sorts of AI things, but some of these things are slow to adopt. I mean, just the fact that we've had a couple of wars going on, and all the munitions that are being spent, and all the lessons learned that we're getting. So technology improvement, AI too, right? But other technologies, physical technologies, mechanical technologies, weapon systems, right? And replenishment of that. There's a lot of supply chain issues, that can be solved. And the onshoring of defense manufacturers, huge opportunity. You see the money flowing there. When you see the money flowing and the demand is increasing and there's not enough of supply, guess what? You should be a supplier domestically.
Heck yeah. Well, that's been great answers. Great chatting with you and catching back up again, David. Enjoyed it. If people want to poke into 9High, figure it out, see if it's a fit, maybe join the marketplace, how best would they do that?
So, yeah, so right now, just come on to 9High, NINE-HI.com. Log in. So we'll give you a month or two to try the platform out for free. Again, even if you stay longer than that, which we want you to, it's only $5.99 per user per year, unlimited usage. So you can, if you're doing a startup, if you're in a large corporation, we're on the commercial cloud. We've got all that security built into it. You can come in, confidentially build out and understand your projects. Nobody's going to see it but yourselves, and we'll help you onboard.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I keep coming back to the whole time. It's usually not bad tech decisions aren't getting them funded. It's all the other pieces wrapped around the architectural problem of how to solve that engineering and the business case behind it.
That's it. It's the execution of the whole business case and everything. And not having the contacts on the inside. I can't emphasize, we just talked about Soft Week, going to be down in Tampa. I'm going to be meeting as many people as I can, and other people should be doing the same thing. It's person to person.
Yep, we'll be there as well. So we'll be high-fiving our way through the crowd.
You got it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Thank you.